In this lesson, we're going to talk about preparation of salts. We have discussed the neutralization reaction, and it's very important to know the concept of neutralization reaction before we talk about preparation of salts. And if you haven't already, I would encourage you to check out the video on preparation of salts and then on neutralization before we continue with the lesson on preparation of salts. So first of all, we have to discuss what a salt is, because we use this word more often on our day-to-day activities. Salt, we mention salt. Okay, so when it comes to chemistry, salt is definitely not what we just imagine every time we think of salt in our day-to-day activities. Is probably something else, and sometimes it's like the same salt we know, but only it's like we're going to think of the concept in terms of in a scientific way, and not from the kitchen or on the table. Okay, so preparation of salts. A salt is any ionic compound made by combining an acid with a base. So a compound which is formed when there is a reaction between a base and an acid is called we have a salt which is formed, and the reaction is called a neutralization reaction, and can be represented by the formula that we have a base reacting with an acid gives you water and a salt here. So you need to know how to write this chemical reaction, and you need to put this is like a format which you should have in your mind. As we talk about chemistry, you probably need this when it comes to titration, qualitative chemistry, quantitative chemistry. You need or quantitative analysis. You'll need to have an understanding of this reaction, because when you're doing titration, you basically will be performing this reaction. An acid reacting with the base or an alkali to give salt and water. So this is called a neutralization reaction and can be represented. This is the formula, and we did talk about this formula on an ionic level. So a salt is formed by this reaction. So what could be a more familiar or an easy to understand definition of a salt? So we can just say it's a compound formed when the hydrogen ions of an acid are fully or partially replaced by a metal or ammonium ions. You can choose this definition, or you can say a compound made of positive metallic ammonium ions and any negative ion of an acid. Okay, so whichever definition you choose, or easier for you to memorize, there's nothing wrong with memorizing. You can do that, and though you have to understand the concept, but again you have to memorize. That's the bottom line. So a salt is formed when you have the hydrogen ion of an acid being fully or partially replaced by metal. So hydrogen ion being replaced by metal, or a compound made of positive metallic or ammonium ions, or a positive metallic ion or ammonium ion, and any negative ion of an acid. So the acid is donating a negative ion of an acid, and then we have the positive metallic ion from the base or ammonium ion. So you have to get this first here. So from the acid you have let's say it's HCl, you have a negative ion which probably will be chlorine. So let's say it's HCl, so probably will have a negative there. The acid will probably contribute this, and we have a metallic ion, which one is metallic here? Of course it's sodium. Okay, so when this donates this, acid donates this, these guys will form a salt, which is sodium chloride, and this is what is known as also as common salt. So this is how a salt is formed. So we've got a negative ion. If you don't understand what an ion is, you can watch the lessons from the beginning of this series of the video, and then we talk about we define what an ion is. So we have a negative ion from the acid, positive metal ion from the base, so the alkali here, to give us a salt. So I have to make you understand this, because that is probably you'll be asked to write ionic equations, and you have to write chemical equations. I shouldn't even use equals here, because that will be wrong in chemistry. It's not mathematics. So probably we can put this, that'll be much better. Okay, so that is a salt. So generally when you try to understand the salt, this is what happens, and that is all about salts. So before we talk about the preparation of salts, and we have defined the salt, we will try to classify salts, and salts are in groups. It's not just one salt, and different kinds of salts. So we have to classify salts. So certain salts, they have the acidity or basicity of aqueous basicity effect, will affect the acidity or basicity of aqueous solutions. So we have to know how does these salts affect the acidity or basicity of aqueous solutions, and we'll classify the salts based on that. For example, the first class of salts we can talk about is what we call neutral salts. So remember, these are having an effect on the acidity or basicity of an aqueous solution. So they affect the acidity or basicity, like I'm sure from the definition of acids and salts, acids and bases, we understand what acidity and basicity is. If not, again, you go back and get the definition. So neutral salts, they do not have an effect on the acidity or basicity of a solution. That is the bottom line. So these are called neutral salts. They do not have the effect on the acidity or basicity of a solution. And then we have is for example, which is sodium chloride, which we are just from talking about. It's an example of a neutral salt, because neither the ion in sodium chloride affects the acidity or basicity of the solution. So sodium chloride could be talked of in terms of on a normal level of understanding, like the salt that the one we use for food, table salt, that is sodium chloride, and it does not affect the acidity or basicity of a solution. It just stays neutral. So that is called a neutral salt. It doesn't affect the acidity or basicity of a solution. So question: what is a neutral salt? A salt which does not affect the acidity or basicity of a solution. give one example of a neutral salt, sodium chloride. I think we're good there. We can jump to the next class of salt. We can talk about which is what is referred to as basic salts. So what are basic salts? So these are salts which make solutions basic. That is it. They make the solution basic when dissolved in them. Example, we've got sodium acetate. This is the chemical formula for sodium acetate. So these salts make solutions basic when dissolved in them. Okay, those are called basic salts. Okay, so we jump to the next one. You probably could guess what that would be: acidic salts. Okay, so neutral, basic, acidic. So acidic salts, what do? Of course, they make solutions what? Acidic. Very good. Okay, in the example of acidic salts, we have the ammonium chloride as an example. Next, we can refer to anyway, those were the types of salts. So we've got basic salts, acidic salts, and neutral salts. Now, what are the rules for the classification of these salts? So generally we talk about two rules for classifying salts, If an ion comes from a strong acid or base, it will not affect the acidity of the solution. So therefore that will not be an acidic salt. If an ion comes from a weak acid, it will make the solution basic. If an ion comes from a weak base, it will make the solution acidic. So these are the rules you can use for classification of salts. So which means you have to know which is a weak acid and which is a weak base. So if you come from a strong acid or strong base, an ion comes from a strong acid or strong base, it will not affect the acidity of the solution. Strong acid, strong base, no effect. Weak acid, it will make the solution the opposite of being an acid, that is, or the other side. I don't know if I can even use the word opposite. From a weak acid, it will make the solution basic. If weak base, it will be acidic. They will swap like that. Weak acid, the solution will be basic. Weak base, acidic. Okay, if it's a strong base, strong acid, they will not affect the acidity of the solution. Okay, so this is how we can classify salts in the different types of salts. So now in the next lesson we'll talk about the preparation of salts, and we'll dive more into that. So we'll see you in the next lesson.